Midnight in Schenectady, a remembrance. I remember that Dave was more animated than usual as the three of us sat around the Y cafeteria table that summer night years ago, like he sensed something, impending doom. Dave Ramsey, 23, former Tribune Papers trust fund baby, now Thorazine addict. Ferried off to the closed confines of the YMCA Schenectady because autism was not fashionable in 1973. Dave, shaking his leg and smoking cig after cig, threw up at least 3 times every day, popped the Thorazine that his family provided on a regular basis. Thorazine, the substitute now for the love of a mother, the pride of a father. Earlier that day, my first and only love had been seated here with me at this very table. Cash register girl at the YMCA coffee shop. Kathy, 22 and beautiful. The Woolworths hairdryer set on the table between us. Cost me $19, almost half of what I made, doing janitorial duties at the Y every week. My going away present for Kathy. Love is delicious and indescribable when one has not yet experienced its physical component. When all that one knows is the aching of some heretofore unknown wonder, never to be felt again. What a glorious fool I was. Today, years older, I no longer know the magic of youth and love, only 405 traffic, paying taxes, and the stark realization that my 19-year-old self would kill me for breach of promise if we ever met. The thought of buying a hairdryer for a woman who would never love me but whose smile, very present, albeit for only a few hours, could somehow make me alive, truly alive. Well, that is alien to me now. On that day, though, so many years ago, it was real and it was pure. I died the day Kathy walked out of the Y coffee shop, the burial of the body, just a minor technicality. I wonder if Mira Talkin' Bill was ever in love. So-called because old Bill, all 400 pounds of him, would sit in front of the mirror in his room, the one next to the Y fourth floor elevator, and hold nightly conversations with himself. As soon as he heard you walking past his room, he'd break out with a maniacal laugh. They said Bill left something in Vietnam when he saw his buddy lose his face from a bouncing Betty. One of the other NAM vets told me that that's a mine that bounces straight up to eye level and then explodes. Took Bill's soul along with his buddy's face. Someone said Bill had a wife or a girlfriend before NAM. He would have been about the age I was, around 19, when he went to Da Nang. Somebody said that some nights, Mira Talkin' Bill would not be laughing. In fact, if it was quiet enough and you listened hard, you could hear something quite different. Would you like to dance with me, Marie? I'm Bill. Sorry. Well, if you don't want to. Oh, you do? Well, now. Thank you kindly. There would be a pause, and then the quiet sobs would start. Never got very loud, but they were there. Like a wounded animal, pain, loss, eternal. I wonder if Bill felt that moment of pure love, that joy, that endless possibilities that I felt when I sat with Kathy. If he experienced what I did when Marie danced with him that day before he shipped off to Vietnam. Anyway, let me get back to those other 2 guys at the table that night. I already told you about Dave. Now, Joe Ramirez was there as well, the major, always dressed like he was wearing a uniform, button sweater and well-kept hair, pants creased perfectly, pencil mustache. Reminded me of the guy in the old U-Band commercials, Juan Valdez. Joe, the surrogate father to Dave. Joe always with a plan, a scheme. He was going to get them both out of there. They were going to go to Spain, maybe even live in a castle. Sometimes Joe would read to Dave from Don Quixote, Dave his poncho. You see, Joe loved Dave. the way a father loves a son. Joe never able to have a real family. The government chemicals in Nam, a very good form of birth control. As soon as he settled the suit with the VA, the one where he'd make the government pay for his exposure to something called Agent Orange. He pissed every 5 minutes, it seemed. They're probably good for Dave because Joe was usually in the bathroom when Dave needed help puking. Anyway, Joe also had a little twitch, I guess you would call it, all from this Agent Orange stuff, he said. Joe and Dave were my friends. I miss them now. The other guy at the table that night was Richard Selby, an Army friend of Joe's. He'd only been staying at the Y for a few days. I remember his name because Dave always said that he had a cat named Selby at his home when he was a child. The home he lived at before he became an embarrassment. Dave always used to tell us how much he missed that cat, especially at midnight, which is what time it was in this particular recollection. He would even cry sometimes. Joe would try to console him, but sometimes his twitch and his bladder got in the way. He meant well, though, and I think that's all that matters. Richard's hand shook. His nails were yellow. I was not the drunk that I was to become then, so I didn't know that Richard was carrying the tremors and the jaundice that is the trade-off for the 3 seconds of bliss the hopeless alcoholic gets from the unrequited love affair with John Barleycorn, the almighty drink. Richard was rambling this night. I could smell the booze. His wife had decided to leave him and take the kids. There seemed to be a finality in it. It was in his eyes. You can tell a lot from the eyes. Richard was moving his hands all around, cursing and yelling, and then talking softly and even crying. But his eyes, there was nothing there this night. We all tried to console Richard. Well, Dave and Joe did, but I wasn't really any help. I could still smell the scent of Kathy on my shirt, still there from our embrace, the final one, the only one. The indelible picture of her leaving the coffee shop and the finality of it all. I went to the address she gave me sometime after, and I left a pathetic note, a pleading and overly dramatic note full of pain and lost dreams. Found out later she had already moved. Next morning I came down for breakfast, sitting there having coffee. I watched as 2 ambulance guys and a cop went running to the elevator. Dirty Dottie, the dishwasher and purveyor of midnight favors to the residents' various dead men walking, was laughing. "Did you hear about Richard? The dumbass hung himself with his belt this morning. Maid heard the banging behind the door, opened up and saw him hanging. Hell, he might have still been alive. Dumb bitch came running down to get Big Ed. Poor Big Ed. He's got a week before he had to retire. I had to see that. When he finally got him down from the floor, the deed was done. Dead. Hey, here he is now." Dave was there along with Joe. Dave shaking more, and Joe was having a harder time than usual with his twitch. We were all looking out into the lobby as the stretcher with Richard's body came out of the elevator, all covered up nice and neat. I thought about Richard for most of that day, and I wondered if he ever stared into his wife's eyes for 4 hours in some coffee shop, oblivious to the rest of the world in a kind of nirvana that seemed eternal. I wondered if he smelled the scent of her long afterwards. I wonder how many years it took before it faded from memory, only to be replaced by the 405, paying taxes and waiting for the end. Then, in one long, painful side trip to hell, how he tried to reclaim that wondrous bliss in the inside of a bottle of Jack Daniels, only to fall off the edge and into incomprehensible demoralization. I never saw Dave or Joe again. I heard that Joe was sent to a VA hospital in Syracuse, had to be taken away in a harness via ambulance. The fact that he was helpless to save Dave from choking to death on his own vomit after one particularly excessive day of Thorazine, enough to cause a complete mental breakdown. I'm still here. An eternity later. The other night I had a dream that I was with Kathy again. In this dream we were both kids, maybe about 11. I don't remember what she said, but she was laughing and giggling. We both were. Sounds kind of foolish, doesn't it? But you know what? This time, she didn't leave.